Welcome everyone to the channel and the AFC South draft grades. And in this video, we will be going over those four teams in the AFC South and how they did in the drafts. As you can see, I have the grading scale here where each of the teams will fall into one of these categories, and each and every draft pick is graded and will fall into one of those five color-coded categories. Gray being the worst, which is very hard to get. Red being picks I did not like. White being neutral picks where a majority of picks will fall into. Green being picks I liked, and golden being amazing value, amazing pick, and great job altogether. Each of these draft classes will also be ranked amongst the other 32 teams in the league, which will be demonstrated on the graphic. But without any further ado, let's get into it with the first team we'll be covering in this division. Coming in fourth in the division and number 31 overall, it is the Jacksonville Jaguars, who I think did a really poor job over draft weekend. And this one isn't as controversial of a take. This one's pretty unanimously agreed upon wherever you may have the Jaguars. I've seen a collection of them in the bottom 5, bottom 10, and I just think the Jaguars, I consider them a team that I don't think they care about day 3 of the draft. I just think they just pick at random, it feels like at times, and there are two teams that really do that in the draft process, and the Jaguars are most certainly one of them. This is probably the most negative video of all the draft classes when it comes to a division. I think this was the most overall poorest performing division when it came to the draft, and the Jaguars came out the bottom of the 4. Now let's start off with Brian Thomas, and I like Brian Thomas. I don't think that the Jaguars were maybe the best spot for him to go. I'm not a big fan of maybe the fit, as you have Christian Kirk, Gabe Davis, Brian Thomas, Zay Jones, and Parker Washington as your receiving core. It's a lot of guys in there, but they're going to really need to hope that Brian Thomas can emerge as a true number 1, which I didn't project Thomas to actually really be a true number 1. I think Brian Thomas is a great number 2 potential. I could be wrong, but I don't know if Thomas will be a true number 1. And looking at that receiving core, you got a bunch of number 2s, and you can get by with a bunch of number 2s, but like, man, you could really use a number 1. I think it has become increasingly more valuable in the NFL to just get a number 1 receiver. Brian Thomas felt more like a receiver who could go to a team that had a number 1, and he can complement them as a number 2, or have someone next to him that could be helpful. I had him going to the Colts, going with Michael Pittman, who is a very contrasting different style, and I said I loved the fit of Tampa Bay for him, where he could go complement with Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. I thought those were better fits for Brian Thomas. Jacksonville is not a fit I'm a fan of, but I'm not going to knock the pick because I do think it's obviously, a position that they could have used, and he is a nice player. Where I can knock them, though, is going Mason Smith in the second round, and I'm someone who does like Mason Smith and really believes in his upside. I think Mason Smith has really, really good upside, as a lot of people do, but I was more comfortable taking him in day 2 than some others, but even number 16 in the second round, that's even way too high for me. At absolute highest was considering him a late second, but not even really that. I probably wouldn't have touched him in the second. He very much was a round 3 guy at best for me, and I understand wanting to bank on the potential, but the Jaguars do this way too much, where they just pick purely based off potential, and you need some guys who could just be players for you, day 1 players, and they just don't do that. It really holds them back, and it's a problem I've had with Jacksonville for a while, is they just don't have stars. They don't have guys. They bank on upside, and then the upside doesn't hit, and you're not really left with much else. So then they go 3rd round, Jerry and Jones. It's a fine pick. It's whatever. I really felt like they could have addressed corner earlier, because I do think it's a more pressing need. You have Tyson Campbell and literally nobody else. Your number 2 corner right now is Ronald Darby, which is concerning to a high degree in my opinion. Then in the 4th round, I thought it was just a abysmal 4th round. You go with Javon Foster and Jordan Jefferson. I mean, Jordan Jefferson got absolutely locked up at the Senior Bowl, so much so they took his helmet and flung his helmet off. I don't think that's a good sign, and you're picking that dude in the 4th round who didn't show good tape at the Senior Bowl, didn't play well, and then got angry and started tossing his helmet aside. I don't know how you're picking that dude in the 4th round. Fifth round, you're taking a Keelan Robinson at running back. You took a kicker at the end. I mean, this is, I think, top to bottom, a pretty poor draft class. Brian Thomas is the highlight, but even then, I'm not a fan of the landing spot for Brian Thomas. Coming in at number 30 overall and number 3 in the division, not that much better than the Jaguars, it's the Tennessee Titans. And it is funny that everyone was kind of joking on the Chargers and Jim Harbaugh, like, oh, they're going to take J.C. Latham. They're going to be the team that just absolutely reaches on Latham. And it turns out, no, the Tennessee Titans did that, as everyone kind of went in assuming that the Titans were going to get Joe Alt. Everyone basically had a mock there because everyone just assumed that McCarthy, they were going to trade up with the Chargers were going to go down, and Alt was just going to fall into the Titans' lap. And that didn't happen. So that's fine for the Titans because you still have pick 7. You have a lot, and it just, I don't know what the Titans are really thinking, because you don't get Joe Alt, fine, but Olu, Fuaga, anybody? I think literally like any other tackle taken in the first round would have been a better, any other offensive lineman in general taken in the first round would have been a better pick than J.C. Latham. I am not a J.C. Latham guy at all. And even then, if you're saying, well, Latham can play guard, well, that's nice, but they took Peter Skoronski and the same exact thing happened. Skoronski, they failed him at tackle, put him into guard. They need tackles. They need tackles so badly. They're starting Nicholas Petit-Frere, who's awful, and then Dylan Raduns, who's also awful. You need tackles. You can't just keep drafting tackles that play guard and moving them into guard. Like, cool, Skoronski and Latham may be a solid guard duo, and that's great and all, but you need tackles. And this is back-to-back years they have taken a guy who has just, I don't think is going to play tackle. Now, I was here for the Skoronski pick because at that point, they just needed any offensive lineman. So I'm just like, hey, just take the best one you can find. And turned out they thought Skoronski was it. Obviously, I could be wrong here, but I think Latham is not going to be a good tackle in the league. And I think he'll probably be a nice guard, but you 100% had an opportunity to trade down. Obviously, we don't know like 100% for sure. A lot of the time, teams have opportunities to trade down, but we know everybody was trying to trade up to get Rome Odunze at 7 or 8. There's no way you didn't have a trade offer. You could have moved down, and you could have gotten Fatanu or Fuaga, or you could have taken Graham Barton if you wanted a guard. If you just wanted a guard, you could take Graham Barton, and he's going to be a better guard. It's just, it's a baffling pick to me, and if it wasn't for another pick we'll get into in a future video, I think the worst pick of the draft. Latham, I just don't see it. I don't get it. So, I mean, that's just the main reason why their draft class ranks so low for me. But it wasn't just that. I mean, they go in the second round, take T'Vondre Sweat, which I struggled what to give this a grade. I overall left it a neutral because as purely a player, he is good enough to be taken in this spot. He is a top 40 player, just purely on the field. But the red flags are off the charts, and for me, I immediately bumped him down to a player that I probably wasn't considering personally taking until the third round. I don't think with those red flags, I could not only invest a second round pick into him, but a top 40 pick into him. I hope that everything works out for him and he can be, you know, what we hope he can be, because I think he has a lot of talent, but the red flags were just too glaring. Obviously, this could all work out and they get themselves a really nice player, because I thought purely as a player, I wouldn't have been surprised if Sweat went in the first round before the red flags, but it's just too rich for me given the circumstances, and it's a pick that we could look back on and say, man, this dude's like out of the league in a couple of years, and it's like he had all the talent, but he just couldn't put it together. So a risky first 2 picks, to put it generously, though I do like their next 2 picks in day 3. I thought they had a solid day 3. Cedric Gray is, I think, the second most like NFL ready linebacker in terms of he could just walk in day 1, and I think he could probably play a little bit. And when you look at their linebacking core right now, They have Kenneth Murray as their 1, and basically it's a wide open spot as the number 2. I think Cedric Gray at the very least is going to be their number 2 linebacker day 1. And then they get Jarvis Brownlee in the 5th round, and I was a pretty big fan of Jarvis Brownlee. I had him over some other corners that were well liked, including Kyrie Jackson. I really liked what I seen from Brownlee at the Senior Bowl, and in general, I really believe in him as a 5th round player to be, more than a good return on his value. You look at a team that acquired L'Jarius Sneed and has Roger McCreary. I am looking at him being potentially their number 3 corner if all goes well, and I think that's really good value in the 5th round. Elsewhere, 6th round, Jaquan Jackson at receiver. I mean, this is a team that has needed a receiver, and they opted to overspend like crazy on Calvin Ridley, so I guess, sure. James Williams at safety and Jalen Harrell at edge, sure. 7th round, filler players. Overall, this is a draft that, I mean, if they come out of this with T'Vondre Sweat being everything we think he could be, aside from the off-the-field issues, and he could become a Pro Bowl interior guy, and J.C. Latham's a Pro Bowl guard, then I guess this draft grade isn't warranted. But for me, what they were looking for was a tackle. It's still going to be an issue, and they tried to use the top 10 pick to address it, and I don't think it got any better. And then T'Vondre Sweat's an absolute wild card, so I cannot give them a high grade. So number 30 overall, it's a poor draft class in my opinion, but I like their day 3, so I'll give them that at least. Coming in at number 2 in the AFC South, and still not that much higher, at number 27 overall, that is the Houston Texans. 3 of the 4 teams in this division ranked near the bottom of the class in terms of every team, all things considered, as while they didn't have a 1st round pick, that has not stopped me from giving out high grades before. See what the Browns did and what the Bills did, but I do not believe that the Texans had a draft similar to theirs, as we can start right at the top at their number 1 pick, Kamari Lassiter. I'm not a big Kamari Lassiter guy. I had him ranked rather low compared to consensus. I think he is basically unplayable on the outside as a cornerback, and you're drafting him to be a nickel. Sure, yeah, he can probably be a fine nickel, but if you're drafting a nickel corner, I think Mike Sanderstill would have been a better option and better fit for the Texans team as a whole. Now, if you're moving him to safety, maybe, but it doesn't seem like that's the case, because you have Jimmy Ward, you have Jalen Petrie, and you drafted Kalen Bullock. I think Bullock overall, as we get to him, solid pick, solid player. I don't have strong opinions on that. I thought he was, in that cluster of like round 3 to 4 safeties that I had graded out, but I don't really like the Kamari Lassiter pick, and I don't really think this helps out a cornerback unit that is really, really weak outside of Derek Stingley. I mean, as it projects right now, their number 2 corner is Jeff Okudah, which is not exactly an exciting prospect for Texans fans, I would imagine. So I don't really think they did all that well there, and there were other corners on the board in round 2 who would have been better fits and probably could have started outside day 1 for them, but it's not going to be Kamari Lassiter because I think he just has unplayable speed on the outside. Then you get into their 2nd pick, though, as I really like what they actually got with Blake Fisher. I think Blake Fisher is a great pick, actually, and by far their best pick of the draft. I think it really shapes their offensive line a bit and shows the direction that they're willing to go. There was a lot of reports during the draft after that pick was made that it looks like they're going to be putting Blake Fisher out at right tackle and moving Titus Howard in at guard, which if that's the case, I mean, that's putting your 5 best offensive linemen out there potentially, and I think that'd be an interesting move, as I think Fisher was really underrated. I think everyone was just kind of gushing over Joe Alt, as was I. I love Joe Alt, but Blake Fisher was really solid too, and I think this is a good spot for him to go, and he's going to have Laramie Tunsil on the other side to help him out. So I mean, he's getting to play with Joe Alt in college, and now he's getting to play with Laramie Tunsil in the pros. So I mean, he's getting put in a really nice situation for him. We already spoke about Kalen Bullock, and it was a solid pick, and their day 2, I think it started rough. Fisher was good, Bullock was fine, but I wasn't a big fan of their day 3, as they go and get Cade Stover in the 4th round, and Stover is just a fine player. He's going to be one of those number 2 possession-y type tight ends who's really unexciting and doesn't really have strong upside or project as a starter. I feel like you could have went with someone who maybe had a bit more upside to complement, you know, someone like a Dalton Schultz who they have, and they have Brevin Jordan as their number 2 tight end currently. So I don't really care for the Cade Stover pick. Then they have only 6th and 7th, and I wanted to put a red down for one of them, but I already said at the beginning of one of these videos previously that I wasn't gonna bash a team too hard for like a 6th or a 7th round pick. But man, Jawar Jordan I think is like awful. Like, I think Jawar Jordan is like an unrosterable running back. I don't know why they really picked him. I mean, maybe that's just perhaps me being harsh, but I thought Garendo was the better running back at Louisville, and even then I wasn't a big Garendo guy. I don't know. I mean, it's a 6th round pick, it's whatever, but like Jawar Jordan, sure. Then they go, you know, Solomon Byrd, Marcus Harris, Ladarius Henderson, just a bunch of guys in the 7th round. It's whatever, but I wasn't really overall a big fan of this Texans class, and I really don't have a whole lot to say other than I don't think they really fixed an outside corner spot. I think they got a right tackle for the future, so I mean that's where the plus comes in and why they're not even lower. So good for them for getting a right tackle and a potentially starting safety in the future, but I think they're day 3. I don't foresee any of these guys doing much of anything. And finally, the Indianapolis Colts rank as the number 1 team in the AFC South, and finally a draft I can talk about and be a little excited about, as I apologize for the negativity throughout this episode so far, as I just haven't liked what the previous 3 teams are really putting out there. But I love what the Colts did, and the Colts had their choice of defensive players at pick 15, and they went with Latu off the edge, and I know a lot of people were concerned about the medicals. I am fine with it. I am not concerned, and Latu does not have the typical, you know, crazy athletic profile that you'd expect from the number 1 edge rusher to come off the board, but he is an absolute technician. I mean, he has more pass rush moves now than I think like Dallas Turner will ever learn. Like, I guess maybe that'll, you know, put my projection out for what I think the Dallas Turner pick will be as we get to that episode later on. But Latu is an amazing pass rush specialist, and I absolutely love what he brings, and him and Kwity Paye is going to be a pretty solid duo if Paye can, you know, really take a next step. But I think they nailed their 1st round pick, and then that wasn't even, I think, their best pick, because in the 2nd round, inexplicably, they get Adonai Mitchell, and I don't get it, to be honest, and this is, I guess, the rant I want to get into here. I don't get how he falls. I don't get it. Like, I really don't understand this, like, off-the-field issues with Mitchell, or these passion concerns or effort concerns. Yeah, there are plays that he kind of takes off at Texas, but, like, I've seen all of the Texas receivers kind of do that. I mean, when the play wasn't really to their side, and, you know, it was a little dump down to the right to Whittington, and you know, Mitchell's just kind of going half speed outside on the left. Like, I don't really have a problem with that. There's already been interviews about how he likes to conserve his energy and he doesn't play at 100% every play. I don't have an issue with that. I really don't. I mean, I guess don't burn yourself out on a play that doesn't mean anything for you. I mean, I know there are going to be those, you know, old school, old head coaches. You should be giving it 110 every play. I really don't care. As long as when the play is to you and you have to do your thing and you have an assignment and it's important for you to do something, you do it. But if you're running to the right side, stretched right, and he's far left blocking a corner and he's maybe not giving it 100%, I do not care. He is going to be a star wide receiver, a certified round 1 grade for me, and the fact that he fell as far as he did due to like effort concerns is ridiculous. Now, the only concerns I had for Mitchell are his upside, in the sense that he has a crazy upside, but I mean, he might not hit it. If he doesn't hit his upside, it's not because of lack of effort. It's because he has a great physical profile. He ran fast. He's a crazy athlete, but he just didn't produce in college, and I don't think that's all his fault. I mean, he was playing with Quinn Ewers, who's not the best QB in college. definitely a bit of a struggle to play with. And I do think Texas's offense, Texas fans can let me know, but from what I've seen, it was a very frustrating offense, as I already brought up Jordan Whittington, and we'll get into him with the Rams. But a lot of plays went to Whittington. They had a lot of plays where they just kind of eyed the only one side of the field, and sometimes Mitchell just wasn't involved in the play, or Xavier Worthy just wasn't involved in the play. It was a run-heavy offense when you have, the type of run game that they have, and you have Jonathan Brooks and Bijan Robinson last year. I mean, the type of team that they had at Texas, it just wasn't really conducive to see him succeed. Neither was it at Georgia, which is another run-heavy team who never really has incredible QB play a lot of the time. I mean, he just wasn't really put in the best situations to succeed. I think if Adonai Mitchell fails in the NFL, it won't be because of a lack of effort, but something in me tells me he ain't gonna fail. And I guess come back to this in 5 years if he's out of the league or whatever and dunk on me. But I really believe in Mitchell, and his, skill set, athletic profile, size, and everything is special. And to get that in the second round is an absolute steal. One of the best picks in the entire draft. And I mean, just for those top 2 picks alone, you get a good grade from me, as I can't really say I can rave about the rest of their draft the way I can with Latu and Mitchell. I mean, they go with the offensive line in rounds 3 and 4, and it's fine. I think Bortolini has a better upside to him. I think he was the better pick between the two, and could be the future center for Ryan Kelly, who is getting up there in age. Anthony Gold, sure, whatever. He's very Josh Downs-like, so I think he'll be, basically just Josh Downs' backup. So, I mean, that's fine. Take a couple of safeties in the 5th round, taking some lottery tickets there and hoping one of them can provide you with something. We could see one of them get to play early on. I mean, Nick Cross hasn't really done a whole lot since he was drafted, and then they go to corner and a D tackle. I can't really rave about their day 3. I like the Bortolini pick, not enough to give it a green because it's like a tentative. Like, I like it, I don't love it, but I think he is the next best guy that they drafted. So Latu and Mitchell, amazing. What really prevented them though from getting even a higher grade and into the top 10 was I wasn't really in love with any of their other picks. So I thought they did an amazing job there. Just, Anthony Gold was, while a bit pretty curious with some of the other receivers on the board, and I don't want to just mention, the same couple of guys that I mentioned, but there were some receivers that fell that I think definitely should have went higher than Anthony Gold. And there were some safeties in there that they could have picked if they wanted a safety bad enough. We'll get into where some of those safeties went in the 4th round that I absolutely loved. If they wanted a safety, they really could have took one in day 3. But it's just a bunch of fine players in the day 3. I'm not really big on anyone in there, but absolutely love their first 2 picks. I think they knocked it out of the park, and I guess I'll keep an eye on Bortolini to be a potential future center for them. So I think it really fits in as a slightly above average compared to the rest of the pack draft. And truly, I believe in Mitchell. I believe in his effort concerns not really being all that big of a concern, and could be looking back in a couple of years and saying, how the heck did the Colts just steal an absolutely amazing number 1 wide receiver in the 2nd round? Or maybe not, but if I were betting, I'm betting on Adonai Mitchell to succeed. So really like that for the Colts, and that will wrap things up for this episode. I hope you all enjoyed. Let me know what you think of maybe Mitchell's effort concerns, and if you agree that the rest of the division, aside from the Colts, did as poorly as I said they did. And I will see you all in the next one.